Hi, hello, salutations milk lovers, the mayor will have you now. I have been very critical of Super in the past and still sort of am. While I am excited for the remake, I remain on my little fence post that the story of either the anime or the manga is very flawed. What can I say, I'm a Toriyama glazer, and while he had writing flaws more so recently than before, I'm still of the opinion that anything he puts out Dragon Ball wise is better than what Toei can cook up, and that if Super would have been drawn after Z by my goat, even with the same bullet points, he would have done a better job than what we have now. I don't think that's too controversial to say. However, what is controversial is my liking of Super's Bardock on equal measure to Special Bardock. Never was I bothered by the newest interpretation in any way, and it's something that's been brought back to my mind after Urasa's video on the subject. Is this a response video? Can be, right? I'll have the crowd for that. That's how that works, right? Anyway, he made a good job of encapsulating what a Special Bardock glazer has to say about the canon one. Stings, doesn't it?
The vocal minority of Super Bardock glazers crawled out from their cave again.
Nah, I'm just messing with you. I'm not like that. Anyway, I have a bunch of points to respond to thanks to this, so lazy video incoming. First of all, there is no narrative to be shifted, there is no slender to be given. I have a great enjoyment for Special Bardock, I'm just here to clear the air, okay? So, to begin, canonicity. What even is canon anymore? Super's shadow canon of Toriyama's unseen notes, every single one of his mangas. Has Toyota really inherited the right to canonicity and his content is canon? A clusterfuck is what that is, but there is a claim that for manga purists, which I am, Special Bardock is the canon version since he had 2 panels in the ever so rare flashbacks of Dragon Ball, and that Super Bardock doesn't have that privilege, meaning he's not canon, or as canon, as if Toriyama didn't draw this himself. I don't think this one warrants much of an explanation. Toriyama liked the special, and since of course Goku has a dad he helped the design of and all, there is a very little impact to adding him in a flashback, contrarily to the numerous OCs with their own parallel lore to the series that Toei has. It's a weird comparison to say that Special Bardock was so beloved he was added while the other Toei OVA characters weren't, when Bardock's inclusion has such a non-impact on the story, except for 2 thought bubbles, compared to the legwork of other Toei originals. Toriyama just changed the design and made it his own baby afterwards. Speaking of baby, I tend to say the Bardocks are equal in my heart, but there is one thing I'm adamant about. Goku's backstory makes way more sense now than it did before. Reddit is just ignorant. Why so? So, there is this special tradition among the Saiyans to send you weak younglings in the hopes they conquer a backward world, and someone like Goku of all Saiyans would have survived according to Raditz' judgment, since he came to pick him up. If that remained the origin, it would lack all sense, because that would mean there would, if not thousands or hundreds, probably more like dozens of Saiyans would be out there in space, sent before the planet's destruction, surviving, conquering, or fleeing their duties. There probably was, and they were probably killed by Frieza's army thanks to some register. But then how would Goku be an exception? He was just sent like any other baby, he was not called back like other adult Saiyans that are in the system. Now we have an answer. He wasn't registered as an invasion baby because he wasn't one. He was sent out under Frieza's nose, and Raditz, so engrossed in Saiyan culture, the sort of concluded Kakarot was an invasion toddler without thinking of the consequences that its survival would bring up. Plus, having Goku being a kid/toddler rather than a baby makes more sense too. Again, Raditz only saw him at that age presumably, so that's how he imagines it. But how the fuck was Kakarot supposed to remember his mission as a baby? Literally freshly born in the special. As a sent kid, Raditz would be wise to question if Kakarot's memories were tampered with from the conversation. We can't really guess or speculate that spacepod have recordings or shit like that in them, because the only time we see people communicate on their spacepods, they have scouters, they probably are using that. I remain of the opinion that Minus did a lot of repairs to previous plot holes. Then later on in the video, he explains how, yes, Goku supposedly had magic plot armor for early Dragon Ball and how that's bad, while showing images of Goku having inexplicable luck. We could try to find some silver lining here, but there is none to be had. Narratively, it just serves as a wonky explanation for honestly instances of classic writing to bad writing. I'm not saying it's good, I'm saying the fact that it fits well means that at least it addresses weird moments where Toriyama's writing wasn't so airtight and great and good and shit. Now, I know this is a lot of Goku for a Bardock video, but I want to get this out of the way because now into adulthood, minus would muddy the themes of the Saiyan saga, because Goku isn't a backwater Saiyan who got care and luck anymore, but a backwater Saiyan who got care and luck. I think the only thing that irks Uraza is that part of that care and luck came from the system that is in question in the Saiyan saga, but Frieza is at the helm. Vegeta is a representation of that idea, a personification of the system, with Nappa and Raditz being results of it. Minus just showed that there were cracks in it, which the special did too. That Bardock is, as he says, on his way of becoming good, but killed before attaining that. Super Bardock has simply made 2 extra steps on that journey. That's a lot of discussion for 2 steps. As if Super Bardock wasn't a murder hobo, which he is. He isn't a good person. If you commit genocides on the daily and love your wife, you aren't a beacon of good, okay? Hell, we see Bardock in the middle of a genocide firsthand twice on the page. Twice as much as Special Bardock. But he was implied to be more of a psychopath than Super's, right? Not the guy who guessed Frieza was going to do a genocide from experience. Super Bardock knew, not because of foresight, but because he's just acquainted with the methodology of wiping off an entire species, that he catches Frieza doing one of the protocols under their noses. And also, are we skipping over that? The foresight? Are we just forgetting that weird thing? Oh, they made Goku too special. Bitch, your Goku could see the future! He wasn't no regular Saiyan anymore either. I'm getting agitated. I promise I like Uraza and Special Bardock. It's just, it's nonsense. That debate is nonsense. Bardock's showing of not being a total lost cause in the special was caring for his squad. Super's was caring for his squad and his wife on top of that. See how they aren't that different? Super Bardock is implied to have lived through a similar version of events than Special Bardock, except that he didn't get foresight, his bandana, and the Kakarot storyline was different, and 2 instances of kindness in a man whose records since birth or genocide after genocide don't make him marginally better than Rambo Bardock. We simply saw more glimpses of what could have been of a lost cause, the same way we did with the other one through more Toei shenanigans we'll happily ignore here. One other thing that was bringed up was a fight against Gas, where Bardock obviously got himself in trouble because the thought of his family clouded his Saiyan judgment. Later on though, he admits that the adrenaline is making him much more interested in the fight for the love of the game rather than granola and co, which I think is sincere, or at least he tries to convince himself it's for selfish reasons, when it evidently is not, as part of that Saiyan system that's still clumped on his mind. An example of the backpedaling a lot of Saiyans probably go through on their way to betterment before their birth circumstances and culture brings them back. I think that's sort of great writing. The more subtle work Toriyama admits to not really being able to do when he was speaking about Zamasu, for example. So props to Toyotaro on that, even if the character arcs of our main characters in that story is really iffy. Super's writing is iffy in a lot of places, but Goku's supposed lesson is just another poorly done rehash of things he went through in Z. I won't defend those decisions. We're closing into the end here, yes already, but I guess the last thing we'll tackle here is their personality, and in that regard, I don't think there is much to say. They are both engaging. Special is just a bit more giddy about killing and gets cold when he's in serious predicaments, whereas Super is generally more cold about the killing and more giddy about serious predicaments. I think that's the only real discernible difference between the two, a switch of spectrums. And I guess Super has him being a bit dim, but that's more of giddy nagging him, I believe, since that side of him is never shown anywhere else. Overall, I try to dismantle arguments placing Super Bardock below Special Bardock, but I love them both. But where Toei Bardock really takes a cake is in his sauce. He definitely has more sauce, and for Dragon Ball I understand there is a great appeal in that, and that creates more or less valid biases towards his depiction. He's more hype and has more aura, if you could say. Other than that, I don't believe they are too dissimilar, and it's pretty easy to create a compound version of Bardock that we give it credit for, with pretty low amount of screen time respectively. I don't think Super Bardock replaces Special Bardock. I don't think he diminishes him either. I think that two takes on the same man, filtered through two different moments of the franchise, with different priorities, different tools, and different blind spots, both do their job. If you prefer the original, that makes complete sense. Special Bardock has a ridiculous amount of sauce, but if Super Bardock never bothered you, you're not betraying anything sacred. The gap between the two is way smaller than people pretend. I mostly wanted to clear the air on that. If you disagree, tell me why. I mean it. And if you agree, even better. And if you're just here because you like hearing Dragon Ball discourse, welcome. You're among friends. Like the video if you want. Subscribe if you feel like sticking around. Do the whole YouTube ritual. You know how it goes. For now though, my hot chocolate is perfectly heated up and mixed, even if you can see it since it's off cam, and actually there is none. This is off cam. I'm sorry, I'm lying to you. There is no hot chocolate. I'm gonna make one after this. If you're really picky about this, I've been the mayor. See ya. Goodbye. Farewell.